This might be the most powerful story we've ever had shared. If you want to be successful in life, in business, this is an episode you're not going to want to miss. Today on the Stories Behind the Door podcast, brought to you by Kiwi 2 Construction, it's the founder of DP Capital Partners, Dayo Adebayo. All right, before we jump in with Dayo, I'm going to give a shout out to my friends at Kiwi 2 Construction real quick. Would not have this podcast without Wayne Woolsey and his team supporting us. I get such a great chance to talk to so many great people in our industry. These guys have been doing steel in the self-storage and boat and RV space for 30 plus years. When they say it's going to get done, it gets done. If you have any needs for steel, reach out to Wayne and his team. Tell them you saw them on the podcast. We will super appreciate it. He's Dayo Adebayo. I first met him out in the Toy Storage Nation conference in Anaheim, California in July. Will not forget. Was such a great guy to meet. Carries himself in a way where it's just immediate that I wanted him to be on the podcast, wanted to get his story. So Dayo, we made it. It took a couple months to get there, but we made it. I want to thank you for taking the time to join me.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Thaddeus. I know we've been trying to get this done for a while, and I'm happy we finally make this happen. It's been a pleasure to be on your podcast. Like I told you, I like your spirit. I like the positivity, and every time I see you at any of the conferences, it's always a good time. You're always just so positive, and that is very infectious. So please keep it up, and just keep being who you are.
Appreciate that so much, man. And back at you. As I said, when I first met you out in Anaheim, then obviously we saw each other at the 50th SSA as well. You carry yourself just in a way where it commands respect. You don't ask for it, but you treat people with respect. I'll say this, and we're going to get to this question later, but you dress impeccably. So we're going to ask about that, but I'm going to ask some other questions first. I always start the podcast the same way. I'm interested in people's story. You've taken a route to get into the self-storage and boat and RV space that maybe is a little different than some other people. I don't think anyone ever sets off to get in this space. There's always some type of a journey, which is why I always start with this question. But tell me how you found yourself in this space.
All right, it's a long story, but I'll try to summarize as
We'll take it. We wouldn't do a podcast if we didn't like long stories.
All right. I like that. I like that. So, my background is in computer science. Undergrad computer science, master's degree management information systems. I lost you for a second. Can you hear me?
I got you back.
All
Yep.
right. All right. We're good. Hey, technology. All right. We're good.
We're having a day, Dial. We're having a day. Sometimes it lags a little bit, but I can hear you. Yep. It always
That's
comes
all right.
back.
All right. So, undergrad computer science, master's degree in management information systems, and straight out of school, I went into IT consulting. I worked with a specific software called SAP that was, it was the best enterprise resource planning software at that time. I believe it still is, even though I'm not, in that world anymore. But, that was a really, really, really great experience that introduced me to how business is done at a high level. The software I was working with was pretty much automating businesses, automating all departments of your company. You could be in different time zones. You could be in Belgium, you could be in America, you could be in Tanzania, and, one system that is live 24/7. And that gave me access to, some boardrooms because I was focused on the business intelligence sector of that software. So I was pretty much building dashboards and having access to the type of data that these guys need to make decisions to, reduce expenses, improve profitability. And so I saw how decisions are made at that level. And, we could come into one company, they're trying to reduce payroll by a significant amount, 200 million, 300 million, whatever. We'll come in, we're there for like 6 months, interview all the heads of departments. Okay, who are you? What do you do here? Identify the processes, and then build a process and the system that replicates that. And all of a sudden, it's, a department that has maybe like 100 global employees. Now you can run it with like 10, and so I saw people that have been with organizations for like 30, 35 years. And just like that, that's it. Thank you for your service. And
Yeah.
you know, I felt like, life should be better. That there has to be a better way to live life. And so that was what led me to entrepreneurship in the first place. So I started little real
Love
estate
it.
projects and I started little real estate projects on the side. I did like a house hack, which is like, the ground floor of real estate. You own a place, you rent out a room, and then someone's covering your mortgage. I went from that to fix and flips while I still had my job. And
Mhm.
I got comfortable with that, and I've always just wanted to do real estate you know at a bigger level, but I was limited based on the capital that I had at that time. So I started multiple businesses along the line. Some worked, some did not work, but eventually one of them worked really, really well. I started with 5 employees. By end of year two, I'd employed almost 300 people already. Yeah, so payroll through the
Now
roof.
you got to tell me a little bit about this business. This is part of the journey, obviously. What were you doing and why did it work?
So while I, had my 9 to 5 job, I started a logistics company that was transporting luxurious vehicles across the country. I love cars and love being around them. And I met this guy who had a company that was hauling these vehicles across country. You could see like a 53-foot trailer, not seeing what's inside because it's enclosed, but it could be 6 Ferraris going from Long Beach, California to Houston, Texas. I'm like, oh, I like this. I want to get into this. And I did, I had savings from my job and my little real estate projects I was doing. And I got a truck, got a driver. It was lucrative. It was really good, but it was just very risky. Every time a driver called me, it was not for a good reason. It's either DOT
It
trouble.
wasn't happy birthday.
No, never, never. It's either, and the Department of Transportation has all these regulations that are kind of just set up to, for them to get access into your pockets. A lot of them don't even make as much sense, but it is what it is. So
Yeah.
DOT trouble, just minor accidents, for instance, you scratch a Ferrari. I mean,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
costs me
That's not $100 problem,
Yes,
right?
right. Yeah, and I had some of those, and my insurance bill started, going up just based on, those little accidents. But I still kept it going. I bought another truck, business I was trying to scale the business, and along the line there was a particular year, it's just not years, probably like 2015 or there. Well, um, Amazon had a problem where Amazon was growing so big and a lot of, at that time, they were completely dependent on USPS, UPS, FedEx to deliver their packages. And the volume that Amazon was pushing out, it just became too much for those guys. So there was a particular Christmas that, packages didn't get delivered before Christmas. It was a mess. And, Amazon thought, you know what, it's time for us to start our own thing. And, they put the word out that they were starting their own logistics company. They were looking for, people with like leadership roles or mom and pop businesses in the logistics sector that kind of understand, that whole industry, see how they could help them. And I reached out, say, hey, this is me. I'm a corporate executive, but at the same time, I know logistics and this is what I've done in this space. I think I can help you guys. And went back and forth for probably about 6 or 7 months. I went to Chicago, I went to Seattle, I went to Las Vegas, just to convince them that, hey, let me do this thing. And, eventually they were like, all right, we'll let you do it. And, I became a partner with Amazon. So if you look around town and you see those blue vans that has Prime written on them, they're not owned by
Yeah.
Amazon, but, they're third-party companies that are partners with Amazon to deliver those things. So that's how I started with 5 of those vehicles. But 3 months in, I went from like 5 to 15. And at that time, it was a struggle. I tried to, and that would probably be, and I think those 3 months were extremely hectic. Like it was, I was transitioning to this new business. I still had my 9 to 5 job. I was leading global projects. And, so trying to balance both, it's just, 2 months in, I knew, there's no way, I could do both.
Yeah.
So I thought about, okay, I mean, everything I know, my job is in my brains. And I mean, I've always experienced that if I quit and, this doesn't work out, I can always, go back and I gotta be humble, go
I,
back
I
and look
want to
for
I
another
want to
job.
interrupt for 1 second,
Yeah.
Dio. I love this, and I've actually given this advice to people before, right? Like, what are you really walking away from, right?
Yeah.
Because you can go back, like,
Yeah.
and typically, if you're a good employee, your boss is going to pay you more to come back because they're going to miss you
Absolutely.
when you're gone.
Yeah.
But I want to dive into the psychology of this because you're talking about something, and I'm fascinated over here. I'm smiling my ear off as someone who's been an entrepreneur for going on 30 years. Where did this come from, right? Because you're talking about something like you're making it sound easy, but you're working a 9 to 5. That's, by the way, not really a 9 to 5 because you're walking into corporate boardrooms. And when
Right.
you're doing those types of jobs, people have no problem calling you at 8, 9 o'clock at night or sending you an email or demanding your time outside of working hours. And yet you're establishing whole other businesses on the side. Where did
Absolutely.
that drive? What do you attribute that to? Where do you have that drive to go out and do that kind of work? Because you're essentially holding down 2, 3 full-time jobs at one time.
I think that's a very tough question that might have so many answers. Some people I would say it's natural that, like that's just who I am, but I don't think it is. I might have some traits and, characteristics to make it work, but that drives, I think is, I don't know, there's something else to just light a fire in you, something else to light a fire in you to make you wanna, just that little extra that, that, I mean, they say the difference between extra and extraordinary is the extra. So just that little bit
One of
of,
my
yeah,
favorite
just
sayings,
that
right?
little bit of extra, something has to be pushing you. For me, I think after being exposed to, C-level guys at major organizations. These are guys doing, you know, high six figures, some of them, 7 figures yearly, in income and, their life on the outside seems to be great, which is great, but
Yeah.
they're just not free. Right? They're just not free. Like the freedom is just not there. Like some people, a group of individuals still control your schedule, control what you do with your time, especially at that level, right? With that level of
Yeah.
responsibility, you're responsible for all these people, you're in all these meetings, you're like, you just don't really, you know, have time to do anything else. And I personally just thought, life has to be better. You can do more. You can live life on your own terms. You can, be, abundance. Abundance is a thing. You can actually work towards abundance and achieve it. That's one of my favorite words, abundance. Like you can actually pursue abundance and not to, again, a lot of people think about money as money is just like a nice house, cars, and trips and all of that. But really, I think it's what's more important to me is just freedom to live life the way I want to live life at my time, at my own schedule, whatever. And so it's been a very long journey to get to where we are now, and but hey, we're grateful for where we are today. It's
I I like the more you talk, the more I understand why I was drawn to you. I don't make any bones about this. I have a deep belief in God, and I think He puts people in your life for a reason. But the more you're talking, the more I'm like, I know why I sought this guy out at Toy Stories Nation because you and I think extremely alike. I want to jump back a little bit now. So you make this decision to walk away from, I'm not going to ask what you were making. I don't care, but ultimately it was a job with a level of security
oh,
financially
it was great.
that you
I didn't
understood
interrupt
that
you.
wasn't it for you.
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
you
Absolutely.
walk away from this, you go pursue the Amazon, the logistics business. Take me from there to where you're at now, where you're doing, you know 8-figure real estate deals, like massive deals. Where did that leap come from? Because there's a difference between buying a $200,000 house in Atlanta and putting 100 grand into it and maybe selling it for 4 or 500, and building a 10, 15 million dollar storage or boat and RV facility. That's a whole different level. How did you get there?
Well, I just, they said you have to, you crawl before you walk, and then you run, and then you fly, so the $200,000 house and those investments. That's that's those are moments of you crawling. So now some people never make it out of that phase. Some people stay there. Some people are just comfortable crawling. Some people want to fly. And all of that just all of that will influence your decisions on what you do with your time, how you grow and develop yourself, and you know what have you. So I read a lot of books. Like I consume a lot of books. Like if I tell you how much I go through, I mean, it might sound like I'm bragging, but I go through a lot of books across everything, across real estate, business, finance, marriage, God, nature, golf, just everything I'm interested in. And just, I, and, thank God for audiobooks and everything. Um,
Hmm.
I'm at the gym at least 4 times a week, at least, like 5:30 a.m. And I'm there for at least like an hour, 30 minutes, and that whole period I'm listening to an audiobook. Like, this is a
Hmm.
lifestyle and this has been a lifestyle for more than a decade, so now
Yeah.
imagine, so think of 5, 6 hours of audiobook consumption on a weekly basis, like
Yeah.
it's a lot
Over
of
10
stuff.
years.
Yeah, it's a lot of
It's
stuff.
it's interesting. It's like putting money in a bank account, right? You don't notice it for the first year or 2 years,
Yeah,
or an
man.
investment account, or real estate for that
Yeah,
matter, a development project, right? The payoff is not in year one and year two.
yeah,
But when you stack that habit over the course of 10 years, the amount of knowledge that you've consumed that other people don't have,
yeah.
that's a serious bonus that you
Yeah,
have.
absolutely. It compounds, it compounds. And, biographies, stories of people that are where you want to be right now, how they got there, and, what happened along the line that propelled them to, the level where they are right now. A lot of it can't, success can't really be scripted, like I didn't come from money. I didn't come from like, no, not no, so yeah, my parents are just, regular people, they pretty much just put everything they had in myself and my siblings to go to school, and, that was it.
Hmm.
So it's been, so a lot of just reading people's stories, biographies, how they transition through life, how they handle challenges that came their way and how they overcame them, what consumed them, emotions, which is a topic that I'll probably like to get into, later, which I think is something that, just happens to be a big strength of mine. I try to not, like my emotions don't control my decisions, and
Love
I
it.
think that is a
Love it.
superpower. That is a superpower that you get from, it's just, it comes from wisdom that you gain from reading a lot. Like it's not natural. Like you have to just read and then understand how stuff works and then train yourself, to not just, make decisions on, in the
That
minute and just be grounded.
I the best advice I ever got from a mentor is going back to when I was fixing and flipping and I made a really bad decision. I had a partner that I shouldn't have had because I was being emotional and I wasn't making smart decisions. And I made a bad decision. And when I find out I'd lost massive amount of money at the time, what seemed like a massive amount of money. And I called my mentor and he is like, Thad, you can't ride the roller coaster. He's
Yeah.
like, you have to stay on the platform. He's like, because if you ride the roller coaster, it feels really good when you're up at the top,
All
but
right.
then you have to be at the bottom too, right? So you're saying stuff that's resonating with me so strongly. This idea of detaching your emotions from your business is something that has been absolutely life changing for me, right? Has allowed me to get to a place that I never would have dreamed of being having the conversations I have now versus where I was when that mistake happened, and what the conversations were like then. It's a really, really powerful difference. So I just took over the podcast that's supposed to be about you. So I'm sorry for that. I'm
No,
gonna go back.
I'm enjoying this
Talk,
conversation. I'm
talk to
enjoying
me.
that.
Talk,
I told
no,
you,
this
yeah,
is my
we
half
can
hour
talk
a week where I
tomorrow.
got to shut up and I got to let other people talk. This is the only half hour of the week that it happens. So I try really hard to step back a little bit. I
All
want
right.
to dig back in because like your
That's it,
story
John.
is incredible. I'm
All right.
enjoying this so much. you're consuming information so much. Talk to me about this process from you're doing house hacks, you go to house flipping, you're obviously educating yourself like very few people do. You have a work ethic that very few people have. What happens in Dio's life that makes that leap to where all of a sudden you're in commercial real estate?
So I was doing that, and I wanted to, do that at a bigger scale, but I was limited to, whatever, income level I was at that point, which was a good place. So the Amazon business picked up, end of my second year. I already had over 200 people. I had almost 100 of those vehicles. I had more than 100 vehicles on the road actually at some point. 7 days a week in Atlanta, full, the full, these are your employees, right? Like this is your company. I was really just operating under, the Amazon umbrella, but I was responsible for health insurance, dental insurance, workers' comp, everything, so I dealt with, so thank God that I had a good background of just understanding about business worked initially because initially I had to be the CAO, CIO, CFO, everything of this company, so that was a very, very, that was a tough moment that I was just lost in the grind, like 18, 16, 18 hour work days, easy, back to back to back. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I
Yeah.
tried with the chaos. I liked it. And as time went by, I was going through people so fast because I needed the right people. And there's some things there. You can train someone on a new skill set, right? But like you can't teach attitude, right? You
We
can't
were
teach.
having that conversation offline, right? I have
Yeah,
Eric behind the scenes that people don't get to see, but he's the brains behind this podcast
yeah.
showing up the way it does. And when you find people like that, it's very powerful.
Yeah, yeah, so anyway, that's I told you I can talk forever, but let me skip. Let me move faster. So anyway, the business grew, so well to the point where now I had different levels, different layers of, management before it gets to me. I was able to, buy my time back. I was able to, lower my golf handicap. I was able to then just, relax a little bit. And then at that point, now I had, more capital to scale the real estate that I've been doing in the past. And I had dispensable cash to learn with, right? To learn with, I could afford to make some mistakes early and not be wiped out, So I'm like, all right, so let's start doing bigger projects. I played around with like some residential subdivisions, work well, but personally the residential space, I think it's just so crowded because it's like the entry level to real estate. A lot of people when they hear real estate, all they think is, oh, single family or apartments or whatever, so
Yeah.
and that was working, but my business was still working out fine. I was still, my capital stack was still growing. So I'm like, okay, I need to get out of this space and now even start doing bigger deals. So I did my research on safe real estate investments. That was how I stumbled on self-storage. I'm like, huh, it's an interesting asset class. I read all the books I could read. I started going to the conferences. And eventually I signed a franchise agreement with a company called Storage Authority. I don't know if you read about them, but
Very, very familiar with them for
yeah,
sure.
I did. And this was before COVID. All of this was, way back pre-COVID. I signed a franchise agreement with them. Most especially because at that time it looked like there's more value in ground up developments than you just acquiring. But now looking back, looking at the numbers then and numbers now, so I mean, I just bought as much as I could without trying to build anything, you know. So, so
Yeah.
that brought me into the self-storage world, and it gave me access to other franchises that they had different projects going on in multiple states to actually learn the self-storage game, and I worked, and I tried to, I tried to do probably more than 10 projects at least before COVID. I had access to the banks. I had the cash flow to support, the loan for, these projects, and they all wanted to talked about COPA, get a feasibility study. Paid for I paid for more than 10 feasibility studies in my lifetime. Like now
As
I kind of
someone who knows how much a feasibility study costs, I
yes,
feel for you on that one.
yes, yes.
That's not a cheap outlay.
Yes, I did. I went through all. I mean, like now, I mean, I do my studies myself. If I like my last project, I didn't pay anybody to even. I did it myself. I, walked straight to the bank and said, "Listen, this is our numbers. This is, man, this is what I've done. This is, and oh yeah, sure, let's do.
Yeah.
We'll work with you, But it took a lot to get to that point,
You gotta
So
build that track record.
yeah, so I paid my dues in the sector, and I ended up being I was an LP on the storage project that we got it at like 4, we got it at like 11 at the peak of the market, so
Wow.
so a
Those are
few
fun. Those
yeah,
are
so
that COVID era. There were some really nice
yeah,
deals
so
that
a
happened then.
few yeah, so a few experiences like that just made me fall in love with this self-storage sector, and yeah, that was how I got in. But now, with the cheap capital we had, with the
Yeah. A little
stimulus
different
checks
game.
and all of that, it kind of changed the game completely. So apparently, there have been so many people on the sidelines that I've just heard that, hey, self storage is the safest set, it's the best, it's you can never lose
Yeah.
money, recession resistant, and they all just pumping into storage. They're
Flocked.
pumping into storage a lot. Like right now, everywhere. I talk about Georgia because I live here, but when I talk to someone that lives in North Carolina or other places, it's the same. It's the same. So I completed a boat and RV storage facility earlier this year, and what made me change my mind to that was, so I was at one of the ISS conferences. I've been going there for so long, and the Friday boat and RV tour that BA sponsor Storage Nation. So I
Yep.
was I was lucky to sit next to Bob Aworth of BA. I
Yep.
sat right next to him on the ride from
That's great.
ISS all the way to
It's
uh,
crazy how much business happens on those shuttle bus
yeah,
rides going out to
yeah,
sites when
it is
you're
crazy.
taking those trips.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a good shuttle bus to be on.
Oh,
I'm gonna say
absolutely,
it's some high
absolutely.
level people taking that. Shout out to I'd be
Yeah.
remiss if I didn't give a shout out to Troy and Amy Bix for putting Toy Storage Nation together because that's
Oh,
been a
absolutely,
powerful thing.
absolutely.
Obviously, we at S3 Partners, Barry Sherman's been on the board of Toy Storage Nation since its
Yeah,
inception, so it's something that we've been a big part of. But to your point, you're around very high level people when you're at those events.
absolutely. So I sat next to Bob, on like the old 45-minute ride, and he won't stop talking. Like he just sold me completely. Because at that time I had this project that I was already fully approved for self-storage, and I was about to break ground, but the pricing I was
Yeah.
getting from the contractors just didn't make sense. I'm like, nah, nah, not like no, there's got to be a better way to do this, right? Like, you know what? I think I'm gonna have to just roll my sleeves and do this myself. So, I mean, I was saying like almost like a 1.5 to $2 million delta, from
Yeah.
what it actually, which might be all you need, which is more than enough to make or break your project. you know,
Yeah.
you know.
100%. Yeah.
So I sat next to Bob, and he just kept settling me on board an RV, and I'm like, what you doing, Dave? Like, no, like this is what you got to do. Like, I call this the business you pass along to your lazy kids. That's what I call it. I was like, totally, really? Yeah, they said all these great things that, I then started looking into it. I'm like, huh, I like what I'm saying. And at that point, like everybody was building self-storage. So I had to sit on my permits for some time to decide what I want to do. And eventually I had a pivot on this particular project, fully approved for, like self-storage. I'm like, you know what? Nah, I think I'm gonna get hurt. If I could just sense it. I'm like, I think that I might get into some trouble if I move ahead with this project.
So I just want to give people a little understanding here because when you have fully approved permits on a self-storage project, you are multiples of hundreds of thousands of dollars into the process. This is not something you accomplish with 10 grand. We're
Yes.
talking 300, $400,000 to get all the drawings that you need done, all the studies that you need done. how do you have the courage when you're already three, $400,000 into a project to pull back and say, you know what? That might not be the best thing to do. Because now you got to go design the boat and RV. You can't just go to the town and be like, hey,
You know,
we're going to build boat and RV here.
so
You got to go
for
get
me
all new
present,
drawings.
yeah.
How do you have the courage to be able to do that? Tell me about that.
Which trickles back to, how we started this conversation, emotions. Emotions.
Yeah.
Like you have to find a way to separate emotions from facts, right? I read a book, one of Napoleon Hill's books. I like him, by the way. I've gone through like so many of his books, but there was a particular one there. There's so many emotions, but in business, right? Like there are three key emotions in business that can really make or break your business: fear, greed, ego.
Yeah.
Fear, greed, ego. Like
Love it.
everybody has those qualities naturally, like
I don't
natural.
read as much as you, but I've read Outwitting the Devil, and maybe one of the best books I've
Yeah,
ever read. Outside of the Bible, it's
right.
probably my favorite book. Um, and again, like to your point, mastering those concepts of how to control, because we're all susceptible to it, right? And we all, even
Always
when we
naturally.
understand it,
It's easier.
we
It's
know it.
easier to just, to let those emotions control you than you actually, you know, standing against that. It's a lot of work. It's a lot, so it took a lot of, sleepless nights trying to figure out, okay, what I'm trying to do. Do I just sell this thing? Do I not? And then I started speaking with, some experts in the industry. And I'm not prideful. If I need help, if my janitor has something I need, I go straight to him and say, hey, please, right, this is what I am, this is what I need, so I reached out to a few, people in the self-storage industry to just help him with that decision. One of them is, I spoke with Corey Sylvester with DXT Capital. I spoke with, Amand. I don't want to, more that.
Yeah, Agajanians.
Yeah, so I spoke with like those guys, we looked at my project together, looked at the numbers, and they were like, oh, I mean, this is great, but if, you only need just one new guy or two new people to
And you're
pop up,
done.
like they've been popping up everywhere, you know,
Which these days,
you're
one or two
done.
people is guaranteed, right?
Yes,
Like
yes,
there's going to be one or
yes,
two people building storage in a
yep,
market.
and you're
Uh,
done.
yeah.
Yeah, so,
Listen, I want to before we go, I want to ask a question because you're uniquely positioned in
right,
this, having done so much across different real estate asset
right.
classes. Talk to me about as we go into 2026, because you're right. Even though we're seeing in 2025 less development projects get out of the ground in self storage, 23 and 24 were the highest years of ground up development in the history of this space. It was unbelievable how many projects came online, and the number of people searching for self storage sites to build has gone crazy. What do you see in commercial real estate as the asset class that you think is the most intelligent to pursue currently?
Well, I think it depends on your strengths, your relationships, or your experience. I think everything is still good. You just have to, have the right data to make those decisions that do not get you in trouble. So there's a lot of noise about, small bay flex, which is amazing. I was going to build one. I was in the middle of, permits for one that was so excited about, but I got an offer I couldn't refuse for that parcel. Like I couldn't say no, so I sold it.
Next time that happens, call me and let me make an
Yeah,
offer
yeah,
too.
so
Please,
I sold
before
it.
you sell it, give me a
Yeah,
chance.
I will for sure. So I sold it. So right now, I think moving into next year, my attention is, I'm in multiple asset classes. Like right now, I just broke the ground on an indoor golf club. That's, I'll tell you more about that maybe offline or a different conversation. But I know what that is about.
Love it.
But going into next year, I think a lot of my attention, a good chunk of my attention will be towards the RV storage. I recently
Yeah.
completed one that is listen up right now above my expectation, above my projections. My site is remotely managed. Like no employees, no overhead. I've been in self storage and I know the operational experience that you need for self storage that, I didn't need as much with RV storage. So I can't. So I'm running this myself, no third party, which if you're new to this space, that That's like
5% of your net
it's like a
operating
four, five,
income.
yeah, it's
That's
like a $4,000 or $5,000 fixed
yeah,
expense before, the commission of your income that they get, which during lease
yeah,
up, like, first 2 years, that's like 120K out of your pocket, straight out of gate,
yeah.
So I'm excited about this. We built it. So I have a team that, I think I can build, I'm probably building it for the cheapest price possible right now because I'm building this for myself right now. I don't think there's anybody that can build our storage facility at my price right now today in the country.
I love it.
So I recently launched a $25 million fund to build 4 more facilities. And I'm trying to
How does someone get information if they're watching the podcast and they want to figure out how to get information on the fund? How do they find out?
dpcapital.fund, www.dpcapital.fund. It's a 506c fund that, is launched already. Have a pool of investors that are getting in, and I'm trying to, based on I'm building so $25 million. I'm building 4 facilities, and these are premium class A facilities, all concrete, great cameras, still like gorgeous. Like it's amazing. You want to sleep on the floor when you get there, So those are the
Like
type
it.
of facilities we're building right now, and with some leverage. We're not going crazy on leverage. I'm really using this to actually bring in a lot of people that are, high income earners that would like to own, like all they know right now is still residential and all of that, and I'm trying to just give them exposure to commercial assets. We've done this. I'm showing them, and I have a POC, right? I have a proof of concept, which is my existing facility. So the projections that I'm giving you, I'm not just putting it out of my pocket. Like, these are facts.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah.
very excited about the response that I've gotten so far from everybody. Next year is gonna be a great, 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 great year for us. I have a second one in the pipeline already. The other 3, I'm hoping to get started probably by the end of next year or going into 27. So yeah, we're excited. We're excited about that for sure.
Dayo, you got me excited, man. I knew I was going to have fun when we got this on the calendar. And as it's been getting closer, I've been looking forward to it more and more. But I have to tell you, man, I've been blown away. We're at 40 minutes, which I'll be honest with you, is the longest I've ever gone with the podcast, which should tell you how much I've enjoyed talking to you and getting to know your story. He's Dayo Adebayo, dpcapital.fund, as I said. Just your story is awesome. And to hear the grind and to hear the grit and to hear the willingness to go out and do things that, as I said, most people aren't willing to put the time in. Most people aren't willing to go to the gym for 5 or 6 hours a week, let alone be listening to books and educating themselves while they're doing it. So not a surprise that you've seen the success that you have. And quite frankly, doesn't surprise me now that some of my good friends in the industry, when they found out I was having you on the podcast, reached out and were like, that's going to be a great one. So I'm
Oh,
really, really thankful. And hopefully someday in the future, we can have you come back on and we'll talk
absolutely.
more about how things are
Absolutely.
going with the fund and look
Absolutely.
forward to getting to know you better and hopefully
Yes.
cross paths and be, as I said, I'm a little jealous of the person who bought your site to do Small Bay Flex on. If you follow me at all, you know, that's kind of my baby. That's where my passion is right now.
It's all
Looking
right.
forward to talking more about that. Before I sign off, I want to give one more shout out to my friends at Kiwi 2 Construction, Wayne Woolsey and his crew. As I mentioned, they've been in this space for 30 plus years building self-storage. Also in the boat and RV space as well. You can hit them up at kiwiconstruction.com. Please remember to tell them you saw them on the podcast. I would appreciate that greatly. Their team is just speaking of proof of concept and Dayo and his track record, Kiwi 2 is well known in the industry for putting out great work. So appreciate everyone for watching. That's it for this week's episode. I can't talk. I don't know what just happened. I listened to you so long, Dayo. You were talking eloquently, and all of a sudden I'm mumbling my words. That's it for this week's edition of the Stories Behind the Door podcast. We'll see everybody next week.
Thank you, Thaddeus.